Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to begin by thanking the IAIIEA for granting me the opportunity to yet again talk to you at the biweekly seminar series. I don't take this opportunity to talk to you at this time for granted. I want to thank my brother Ario for always allowing me to be presenting at the seminar series. Colleagues, you might remember that since I started presenting at the seminars, my focus has been more on presenting on research methodologies, which I mentioned in the last session that I was aiming at helping younger colleagues who are still pursuing their further studies, particularly those who are doing their PhDs. So I began my first presentation at the seminar series with a discussion on how to identify a research problem. 2, I went ahead to talk in the second seminar series on how to formulate research objectives, questions, and hypotheses, which I explained is linked to the research problem. And then 3, the last discussion we had about 2-3 weeks ago was on how to undertake a literature review when you are carrying out your doctoral research or even your master's degree research. Now, today, I'm privileged to talk about a related topic. That is the topic on the uses of theory in doctoral research, which I believe I am building on my earlier presentations. I am assuming that somebody who has been following me from my first presentation up to this fourth one would probably get the opportunity to start cross-checking on how he or she is building on his or her study. So this evening, I'm talking about the uses of theory in doctoral research, with special emphasis on doctoral research in education, not just doctoral research in any field. The examples are going to be drawn mainly from doctoral research in education. Colleagues, you should note that the issue of theory is not a very easy thing to talk about. And when you start talking about theory, according to Wise and other colleagues, they mentioned that the word theory normally evokes different reactions from different people. According to their publication, they observe that when people listen about theory or they hear you talk about theory, they may react in terms of confusion, or some feeling or feel like they're frustrated, some feeling of frustration, or some feeling of discomfort. Some people feel like they are getting ashamed because they are not following the issues around theory. But sometimes people even feel joy and the feeling of trying to make an invention So the way people react to hearing the word theory really varies from an individual to an individual. I don't know. I've already started talking about theory. I don't know how each one of you is feeling. There are some people who, when they hear the word theory, they want to go away from that area where the word theory is being mentioned. According to Wise, some people feel excited about theory, and they feel excited when they get out of the confusion, when they start seeing that theory is helping them to get a new idea about how to explain a problem. Then they become excited. Some people get excited when they begin to use a theory, probably develop in another discipline, to try to help them understand a problem they are trying to address. They become excited, they feel happy about it. They now begin to see the value of theory. However, theory has often remained a source of anxiety for many people for different reasons. Some people just say they don't understand things of theories because theory expresses abstract ideas that are never easy to understand. Others argue that theories are better developed and used in the natural sciences, not in the social sciences. Some even argue that theories do not truly explain what exists in reality. And I know when you start talking to people, especially those who are outside academia, about theory, they say, "You have started again. You are theorizing." You know, they think that when you talk about theory, you are talking about something that does not help or work. Yet, Karl Marx once said, "A practice without a theory is blind." If there's something that people are engaged in the practical world, which does not have any theory to explain how best it can be done, to explain why it happens or functions the way it is, then that practice is a blind practice. Any practice, any practice that we engage in life, which is never guided by some theory, is a blind practice. Of course, Karl Marx also said that a theory without practice is also sterile. A theory which does not help to shape a human endeavor is sterile or useless. Such a theory is useless. So, this saying tickles our mind that as scholars, we should not divorce ourselves from the idea of theory because, first of all, theory can help to understand whatever practice that we engage in. Theories can help, like for us who teach. If you want to teach effectively, you must think of the theories of learning. How do people learn best? How can people learn best? And you'll find that there are several theories that have been advanced over the years that can guide you how to teach or facilitate learning. Now, you can imagine if teaching and learning as very crucial activities in education had no theories at all, that would be some kind of a disaster. So theories are very important in our day-to-day life. And in research, particularly in doctoral research, we need to theorize a lot. We need to think about theories from the beginning up to the end, because theories will guide us in the conduct of our research. This evening, my focus is more on doctoral research, but I know there are colleagues here who could be doing their masters, but they are also in attendance. There's nothing wrong, they are most welcome. But my focus was in doctoral research because the expectations of a doctoral researcher, expectations are much, much more than that of a master's degree researcher. Why? Because the purpose of doctoral research is to develop the highest level of holistic and systematic understanding of scholarship in and stewardship of a particular field of study. When you are taking a doctoral research, you are no longer simply looking for the degree award. You are being trained, or you are getting yourself trained at the highest level. The PhD is the highest degree one can get or earn. So you are getting prepared for scholarship and also for providing stewardship in your field of research. So the demand for a PhD research is much, much more rigorous than that of a master's degree research. Doctoral research, the focus of the researcher is usually broad, and the researcher is expected to be well informed about the current knowledge in that field of discipline. This is also true for master's researchers to a large extent, but sometimes master's research projects are smaller, narrower, and maybe less in-depth. In a doctoral research, the researcher is expected to become an expert in that field or discipline. For a master's researcher, one would expect that probably after master's, you can still go for a PhD, okay, to make you become more specialized and to become an expert in that field of knowledge where you are. And a doctoral researcher needs to have deeper insight into the issues that he or she is studying. And so that may not be so characteristics of a master's researcher. So in short, the demand for a doctoral researcher, the demand is much, much higher. And I've tried to list several reasons why this evening our focus is much more on how do we use theory in a doctoral research. It doesn't mean the knowledge we are going to share this evening cannot be relevant to a master's degree researcher. No, not at all. They are just the same. I'm just putting some emphasis that if you are doing a PhD, you will discover that the issue of theory is so much demanded, and you really need to understand how to make use of it. In some cases, I've seen at Makerere, a student may do a master's research and write a master's dissertation without a theoretical framework, and it is still okay. But at a PhD, the issue of theory, whether you say I'm doing qualitative or mixed method and so on, the issue of theory will always be talked about, and you will be put to task to say something about theory, your understanding about theory. Now, what is theory? The term theory has many meanings, and people normally define it in different ways, so in diverse ways. Literally, theory is an idea or a set of ideas that is intended to explain something about life or the world, or the things that happen in life. An idea that explains how something happens or why it happens in a systematic way is believed to be the theory about that something. A theory can also simply be looked at as an opinion that somebody has or thinks about something, which may be true or false. I know normally when something happens around us, we tend to theorize a lot about why it happened. Okay. Actually, even when certain things do not happen, somebody can theorize about why it has not happened. So to theorize there is to have an opinion, some kind of reasoning why something happens or does not happen the way it is. Okay. But scientifically, a theory is a particular kind of explanation about how and why some things happen or they do not happen. Some kind of systematic explanation, logical explanation of why things happen the way they happen. Liddy and Homrod define theory as an organized body of concepts and principles intended to explain a phenomenon. An organized body of concepts and principles intended to explain a phenomenon. And we know concepts, okay? Concepts. You'll find that when you look at any theory, you'll find it is made of concepts, okay? It's made of concepts. And these concepts are explained, linked up by some principles, some rules, okay? So a theory is an organized body of concepts and principles meant to explain why or how something happens or how something functions. Many more other scholars have different or diverse definitions of theory. Others look at a theory as a set of interconnected ideas that emerge from the process of formulating and organizing ideas. Kellinger, for example, defines a theory in a more quantitative perspective as a set of interrelated constructs, definitions, and propositions that present a systematic view of phenomena by specifying relations among variables with the purpose of explaining natural phenomena. Okay, the words are loaded, but Killinger is not giving anything very special about what a theory is. It still takes us back to a theory is a set of concepts and principles that explain a phenomenon, why something happens and how something happens. Now, for something to qualify to be a theory, for a system of concepts and claims to be called a theory, there must be stability in the relationship among these concepts observed over a long period of time. There must be stability. Okay? If, for example, you begin to theorize that the older someone becomes, the more intelligent he becomes. You want to link age with intelligence. Then this relationship between age as a concept and intelligence as a concept must be proven to be stable over a long period of time. For concepts and claims to be a theory also, there must be coherence in the relationship between or among its components. That is, the components of the system that makes up a theory must be comprehensive and logical. Should be comprehensive and logical. That is, if you're saying that there is a significant relationship between age and intelligence, okay, then this pattern of relationship must be logical, meaning the older, the more intelligent, and vice versa. That is how the theory would be stated. Theories should be testable. They should be able to generate hypotheses that can be tested and proven whether it is true or false. Like in this case, I'm saying that the older the student, probably the more intelligent the student, or the better the better the student performs, maybe academically, something like that. Now, if you are reasoning like that, somebody should be able to collect data from younger and older students and be in position to test whether that assertion is true or not. And fourthly, sometimes theories are competitive in explaining a phenomenon. Okay? Sometimes theories are competitive in explaining a phenomenon. Okay? So you find different theories are able to explain why something happens or how something happens from different dimensions. Unfortunately, colleagues, many times, like in education, you'll find that what somebody may use as a theory may not have all the features of these characteristics I've been able to describe above. Sometimes also there are theories which are so broad in coverage that they are hardly testable. They cannot be tested to establish whether they are true or false. I talk about some of these theories, or the broad theories or the grand theories, as we go on with the discussion. Today I want to be with you, ladies and gentlemen. Are you guys there?
Yes, doctor,
Last
we are
time,
there.
Yes, doctor.
last
Yes, we are
time,
here. Yes.
okay.
Doc, we are getting you very well.
We are
Oh,
here.
thank you
very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, we are here.
Please be
Also
there.
present.
If I got cut off, you just let me know immediately. Last time I did not go with you up to the end very well. Next, colleagues, are the types of theories. There are several types of theories. And probably if somebody asks you to talk about all the different types of theories, it would just not be possible. Because the classification of types of theories depend on a particular criterion somebody has chosen to use for describing it. So here I am giving just probably 2 or 3 criteria for classifying types of theory. Some of them we shall just be talking about them, and we may ask, what about this? What type of theory would you call this? Because you may already know this as a theory, but you don't know what type of theory it is. Now, the first criterion we use for classifying theory normally is in terms of the coverage, the breadth and the width of coverage of the theory. A theory which is used to explain something that happens in a shorter time, in a smaller space, or covering a small number of people is called a micro level theory. Or some people may just call it directly a micro theory. Now, these are theories just that which talk about maybe few people or one person, okay, or a small group of people. For example, governments theorize that when people meet in a place and interact, and then they start doing face work. I think you see people sometimes when you go with children to a place, you find somebody is painting children's faces. You know, they look, some look like Father Christmas, some look like something else. Okay. Now, Goffman theorized about that. He said that when people meet together and interact, then they start practicing some kind of rituals, which can include painting their faces or doing their faces, in different ways. Now, that theory is a theory that is on a very small scale. Okay, it talks about how people begin to paint or color or do some kind of rituals to make them look either alike or different in a place. That is a small scale theory. It's a micro theory. Okay. Now, a theory which involves a relatively more number of people, a relatively bigger space, more than the micro theory, we can normally refer to it as meso theories. These are theories that do not deal with the behavior of a few people, but probably the behavior of people in an organization or the behavior of people in a community. Okay? Now, those kind of theories are called meso theories. I know someone who is in attendance this evening who is using the theory of community of practice to guide the conduct of our doctoral research. The theory of community of practice. Now, that is a meso theory. It's not a micro theory because it talks about how people who are of the same profession, okay, behave or do their things as they practice that profession. So the theory is the theory of community of practice is a meso theory. Okay. Some theories talk about organizations, like the system theory talks about organization, how organizations have different component parts and must work together to serve a given purpose. That theory is also a meso theory. Now, there are other theories which explain things or variables on a larger scale, a total scale. Okay? They explain things at an aggregate scale. Maybe they can talk about theories that talk about social institutions, how social institutions or cultural systems behave. I know we know the theory of capitalism, the theory of socialism. Now, those theories are theories on very grand scale, okay? And sometimes such theories are very difficult to test, okay? They are very difficult to test because they cover a large area, they cover a large group of people, they cover many communities and societies. Okay, like I put here from Lenski. Lenski theorized a theory of the stratification of society, where he explained that the amount of surplus any society produces increases with the level of development of that society. Now, that is a universal theory. That's a universal theory. So such theories are macro theories, and sometimes we can just refer to them as grand theories. They are grand in the sense that they are huge, they are big, they cover many people and many communities. And sometimes we can just talk of theories in terms of time, like we can talk of ancient theories, old theories, you know, and nascent theories, recent theories, or young theories. This is classifying theories on how long they have existed. Okay. Now, it is good to think about this because you may find that the theory you are using for guiding you in the conduct of your research is so young that probably first, it may not have been tested by many scholars, and two, it may the relationship among the concepts may not be solid enough So you may need to think about what type of theory are you trying to deal with. Okay? As I said, there are many criteria we use for classifying types of theory. Some of them we just know that this type of theory or this type of theory without explaining that this theory is called this. Okay, it's called this. Now, forms of theories. In the studies that we do, we state theories in different ways. We state theories in different ways. We can state theories in form of hypothesis, because theories help us actually to form hypotheses. Okay, there's a significant relationship between gender and school retention, or there's a significant relationship between age and academic performance. Now, theories can be stated in hypothesis forms, but theory may also be stated in form of if-then logic statement. Okay. Now, this kind of statement of theory help us to explain how an independent variable may influence a dependent variable. See, for example, Oman's theorization, where he said, if the frequency of interactions between two or more persons increases, the degree of their liking for one another will increase, and vice versa. This is a theory of interaction. But you see, the way the theory is stated, it is stated in an if-then logic statement. If the frequency of interactions between two or more persons increases, the degree of their liking for one another will increase, and vice versa. Meaning that if they meet rarely, then the degree of liking may reduce. Yeah? Now, this theory of interaction is stated in an if-then logic. Okay? But sometimes theory may be presented in a visual model. Especially in quantitative studies, you might see a theory being presented in form of a model where there are the independent variables, the dependent variables, maybe moderating variables, and the extraneous variables linked to the dependent variable. Now, that kind of conceptual framework actually depicts a theory, but the theory being linked, being presented visually in terms of a model. We are going to talk about the theoretical framework and conceptual framework, and you will see a theory presented in terms of a framework, how this is linked to that, and this is linked to the other one, and so on. So there are different forms in which we can state theories in our studies. Okay? There are different ways in which we can state. But I do not want to waste a lot of time. Let's go to the crucial matter for us this evening. Now, how do we use theory in an educational research that we engage? First, Creswell observes that there are many functions of a theory in educational research. Actually, this is in Creswell's book on qualitative, quantitative, and mixed method, chapter 3, where he points out that in educational research, the researcher has the prerogative to use theory in diverse ways and in different stages of the research process. But he also observes that the use of theory is partly related to the type of research that the researcher is conducting. In other words, the way you may use theory in a quantitative study or in a qualitative study may not be exactly the same as the way you may use it in a mixed method study. That's what partly Creswell points out, that the use of theory may be slightly related to the kind of research paradigm that you're operating in. So I picked from Creswell because for him, he also started by presenting how is theory used in a quantitative study. And how is theory used in a qualitative study? And then how is it used in a mixed method study? So I almost want to follow that framework. The first use of theory in a quantitative study particularly is that theory provides the framework that guides the entire study, particularly helping the researcher to organize his variables, his concepts, out of which a researcher can generate research questions, hypotheses, and the theory can also signal the approach to data collection and analysis. So you can imagine that theory in quantitative study particularly provides the theoretical framework. Some people call it the theoretical rationale, which helps to guide the researcher from the beginning to the end of the study, bringing out the concepts that are being studied, the hypotheses that are being tested, the questions that are being asked. And that means that in that case, theory will even help you in refining the research problem that you are trying to investigate. From the very beginning, unfortunately, I have only one example for why I put in my title an illustrated guide. So I want to use that guide, although I put it mostly basically for a qualitative study, but I want to use that guide so that we can understand me. It is a little bit far, but I want to bring the idea nearer. This is the illustration. This particular one was used for a qualitative study, but I want to use it to illustrate how theory is used to provide a framework that guides a complete study. This is an example from Grant and Osanlo, where they pointed out that a female student in some university in the US, okay, they just put an hypothetical university, went to a university department to do a PhD. And when she reached there, she discovered that in the past 5 years, the department had graduated 25 students, and therefore it had 25 doctoral dissertations in the past 5 years. But when this female student started to peruse through the abstracts of the finished dissertations, then she discovered that of the 25 students who graduated, only one dissertation was for a female student. Actually, 5 of those dissertations, let me see the story. 25 doctoral students completed in the past 5 years, only one dissertation completed by female students, okay, was on the topic on finance in the department where she went. She found one was on finance, but eight of the dissertations were by male students on the research area finance. And this female student, the story is that she was a journalist, she had worked, she had some experience. Now, when she discovered that of the 25 PhD dissertations in that department where she had enrolled also herself, 8 dissertations were by men focusing on the field of finance, but only one candidate or a PhD graduate had produced a dissertation on finance. Then she became concerned. That became a point of concern. But, you know, she started questioning herself. And the theory, I want now to bring it here, the theory of feminism. Some of you know that. The theory of feminism came into the mind of this young lady. And so she started to ask questions. Okay, she started to ask questions. Why? Why is there only one female student researching on finance and 8 male students are researching on finance? What is bringing this gender gap? Okay, what is the issue at hand? So she decided to study this problem. And the purpose of our study, she stated it like this. The purpose of this study is twofold. First, the first aim of the study is to understand what leads to the large gender gap in the topic selection of the doctoral student in this department. But the second aim was also to provide educational administrators with strategies for encouraging more female students to participate in finance reform and fiscal issues in school administration. Because she was coming from the angle of feminism, feminist theories that probably women are being marginalized in the department. That's why they don't want to study that topic, or that's why they are unable to study that topic. So she designed a study, which purpose is very clear here. Okay, to try and understand what leads to this gender gap in topic selection, and also to strategize on how to provide strategies how administrators can encourage more female students to participate in studying issues of finance. Okay, and you know this research is important. If we looked at the lady's dissertation, we would see her defending that doing this kind of study would help to first of all understand why the female students are few taking that topic of finance, and probably to find out whether there is any segregation or discrimination, you know. So this theory would be relevant to explain what happens with minority groups wherever they are. Now, look at the lady's research question. This research question is coming from feminism. The first question, what is the reason for the gender gap in dissertation topics in this department? And then she produced, that is the main question, which is related to the purpose of the study. Then the other sub-questions are two. How do female doctoral students in the department perceive this gender gap? What are the reasons why female doctoral students do not pursue topics related to school finance? How can educational leaders work to improve this? There are three sub-questions. And that means indirectly you can see that there are three specific objectives that this study went to follow. Now, the theory at the back of the lady's mind would guide her in selecting, in doing literature review, which concepts to review and which concepts not to review. She's combining feminism with the issue of topic selection in the area of finance. So, in other words, I'm saying that your theoretical orientation or perspective will even guide your literature review. And then your theoretical orientation will help you in formulating the theoretical framework. I'm going to talk about this. But this particular lady was talking of feminist theory, that women are disadvantaged in society. And probably the fewer number of female students researching on finance as a topic in that department could have come as a result of marginalization or discrimination. Okay, that is normally forced on women. Okay, that's the angle from which you approach the study. So the conceptual framework normally comes from the theoretical framework. This one being a qualitative study, the lady went on to produce a concept map, which is still a conceptual framework of the key issues like male dominance, of mathematics, accounting, and finance discipline. She built some concepts that would explain why maybe there are few women who were doing research in that field. The theory, the feminist theory that this lady used, helped her to select her methodology. In this case, she selected a qualitative case study of that university, where she used 4 methods of data collection: interviews of the doctoral graduates, focus group discussion with the school administrators, reflective journaling for current students in that department, okay, and study of the dissertations that have been produced over the past 10 years. That is document analysis. So she used 4 different methods of data collection. And finally, in analyzing the data, she used thematic analysis of the interviews, the focus groups, and the reflective journal. Now, where did the themes come from? The themes were coming from the theory, the feminist theory. It is the theory that gives her the themes, whether, for instance, there was discrimination or there was dominance, male dominance. Those concepts of male dominance and all that are in the theory of feminism. So, in other words, this was for a qualitative study where a theory selected or at the back of the mind of the researcher from the beginning guides right from the formulation of the research problem, from the formulation of research questions, from the formulation of that brings the research objectives, then the significance of the study, then the purpose. All these things are related to the theory of feminism that this student had at the back of his mind or her mind. Now you can imagine this is a theoretical framework for a qualitative research where a theory provides the researcher a framework to look at right from the problem to the data analysis. You can imagine. Now this same kind of framework which a researcher can follow from the beginning to the end is more dominant in quantitative research, is more dominant in quantitative research than even qualitative research. So I'm going back to where I came from. I'm now going back to where I came from. The point I was trying to raise here is that the first use of theory in quantitative research, just like in qualitative research also, is that a theory provides the framework that guides the entire study, right from the conceptualization of the research problem to the generation of research questions and hypotheses. I want to try and give another example, the quantitative one, but it is not here in the paper, but I just want to give you a picture. Let's assume you discovered that at Makerere, the job satisfaction of the academic staff appears to be low. Okay? The job satisfaction of the academic staff appears to be low. You normally witness them going on strike so regularly and so on. But then you want to look at this problem from Hasberg's 2-factor theory, which states that the factors which motivate people, that gives people job satisfaction at a workplace, are intrinsic. Things like the job itself, things like advancements, things like recognition are the things that bring about motivation and job satisfaction. But the theory also says that there are some hygiene factors which may demotivate people and bring lower down job satisfaction. Hasberg called them hygiene factors, like the pay people are given, like the company policy, okay? This one, Hasberg called them also extrinsic factors, factors which are outside the control of the employee, that is done by somebody else, like in this case, by management for the employees. Now, assuming you want to investigate the issue of job satisfaction, you can decide to ask, could it be pay, which is the factor causing job dissatisfaction among the Makerere staff? Could it be lack of recognition? Could it be? So the theory gives you the concepts out of which you can create your research question. So in a study of factors affecting job satisfaction, you may find somebody speaking from the theory, pay, company policy, recognition, advancement or promotion, and so on. All these factors you are picking are concepts from the theory. So you can see that a theory can help you in formulating the problem, in deriving your questions and your hypothesis from the very beginning. Are we together, colleagues?
Doctor, we are together.
Yes, we are.
Yes,
Doctor.
Doctor.
Yes, sir.
Doctor, you have nailed it,
We are
especially
Following.
the last example.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very much. So yes, thank you very much. Thank you. So if a theory helps you to look at your problem, formulate questions of what you want to study, and derive appropriate hypothesis that you want to study. That's why sometimes when you look at some people's objectives, you may ask, how did you arrive at these objectives? They don't seem to be linked by any theory. They don't seem to be anchoring on some theory. The questions are just coming from the blue, and the theory is not seen in the work. Now, for that matter, theories help in the formulation of what we call the theoretical framework. Theories help in formulating the theoretical framework. And the theoretical framework is a scheme of concepts which describe an existing theory in a given field of study. And so if you have decided to look at a problem from a theoretical perspective, from a certain point of a theory, then that theory will become like a blueprint or a map that will guide you from the beginning of your study up to the end. And so out of the theory you have chosen, you should produce a theoretical framework. And that framework will guide you on how you should look at the concepts and what they mean and all that. I have here a sample of a conceptual framework. A sample of a conceptual framework. You can see it. This is a concept. This no, not a conceptual framework. A theoretical framework. Sorry. This is a theoretical framework adapted from Thomason that describes customer satisfaction. If you look at the framework, it may not be easy to understand what Thomason was trying to talk about, but you could see things like use of word of mouth and personal needs, and considering personal needs and past experience and marketing and public relations. When you link to need expectations, you can see some arrow coming down. When you link to needs expectation, which is linked to experiences of the customers and weekly achievements, okay, this is of the organization, then all these variables can result into customer satisfaction. To understand the linkage well, you need just to read the theory of customer satisfaction by Thomason, because there are several theories of customer satisfaction. But from the framework, you can see the linkage, that there are some variables up, some concepts, word of mouth, personal needs, and so on, which are linked to needs, expectations, needs and expectations, experiences, and these explain customer satisfaction. Now, if you were to ask question here, factors which brings customer satisfaction, you can derive them from these other variables that Thomason identified. And remember, this is one can call this a standard customer satisfaction model or theory, which could have been developed in the manufacturing sector, but a student doing research in education can adopt. Because in education, we also have customers, not so? In education, we have customers. The students and the staff are customers of a university.
The guardians.
Okay? So a student who is doing factors affecting student satisfaction in universities in Uganda can adopt this kind of framework to guide his or her study. Okay? So the use of theory helps the researcher in the formulation of the theoretical framework. which theoretical framework can give a visual impression of what the study is all about. It gives a visual impression of the concepts the researcher is dealing with. Now, this example is not the only theory of customer satisfaction. There are many other theories. You can use another one, okay? You can use another theory other than this one, okay? But that's how it will look like. Theoretical frameworks are very important in research because they provide the structure by which you can look at the issues in a given study, philosophically, epistemologically, methodologically, and analytically. It also serves as the focus for the research since it is linked to the research problem under study. I showed you an example of how somebody sees a problem, but with a theoretical lens from the beginning, and the theory helps that person to even to derive questions and hypotheses and objectives, and that will help that same person develop the theoretical framework, formulate the conceptual framework, review literature, identify methods, and data collection analysis. So theory helps the person from the beginning to the end. What has been happening in practice is that because I told you that the reaction to theory is normally that of frustration and loss of despair or something, many students do not use theory appropriately. So that even when somebody mentions chapter 1 or in the background, right from the background, this study will be anchored on this theory. You will not find that theory being kept in the dissertation up to the end. When you go to results, you don't now see the theory helping the presentation of data. When you go to the discussion, you don't see, and you cannot see in the contribution to knowledge whether somebody has improved the theory, modified it, or tested it and found it faulty or not. You don't now see the theory at the end of the dissertation. The theoretical framework aids the researcher in finding an appropriate research approach, analytical tools, and procedures. This is just the use of theory. Okay, theories help the researcher to guide him in the entire study. Now, the question here is, how does the researcher select the theoretical framework? Of course, from the theory which you have chosen to anchor your study on. To select a theoretical framework, the researcher needs to thoroughly understand the research problem, the purpose, the significance, and the research question. The researcher should also thoroughly understand the different theories in a particular field of study. And remember, like for education, you may not find a solid educational theory of its own that you may use to understand a problem in education. So you may need to look for this theory outside education, probably in sociology, probably in economics, probably in psychology, to help you understand or see a problem in education, because educational theories, colleagues, are not yet well developed. You know, the learning theories we use are all from psychology, almost all. Okay, so you need to look for these theories across disciplines. Okay, you also need to make an appropriate selection of the theoretical context. Okay, some people identify theories that don't sensibly or logically explain their problem or generate for them hypotheses or questions. And that is a common problem in education, okay? Where educational researchers have often chosen wrong theories, and you'll find that the theories do not speak to the data set that they collect, okay? Because it is a wrong theory from the start, okay? So you find the data they have collected does not help them, the theory does not help them make sense of it, okay? And the research questions of the study and the purpose of the study must also entail noticeable aspects of the theoretical framework. I said theory helps you from the very beginning to ask questions, objectives, and all that from the very beginning, okay? The theoretical framework also helps in producing the conceptual framework. Now, the question at the back of your mind, I'm sure, is what is the difference between a theoretical framework and a conceptual framework? Can one have them both in a study? I want to say yes. The two are related, but the two are not the same. Remember, we said a theory is a set of concepts and principles to explain how something happens. Now, those concepts can be presented either in a visual way or in a descriptive form to try and explain how those concepts are related to one another. Now, when you are presenting the concept somebody is researching on and how they relate to each other, you produce a conceptual framework. In qualitative research, somebody can call it a concept map, but that concept map is actually a conceptual framework. Okay? So, theoretical frameworks help us to produce conceptual frameworks. I have just lifted some samples of conceptual frameworks. The first one, I'm just trying to show you how conceptual frameworks are developed. You identify concepts which you link to one another using arrows. Like in this sample example on the right, this is somebody's conceptualization of the relationship of training and development on job performance. A simple conceptual framework. How is training and development related to job performance? So the person has conceptualized training and development in terms of training identification, training methods, and monitoring and evaluation, and linking it to performance. This is a simple conceptual framework. But even this kind of conceptual framework does not come from the blue. It is informed by theory. Probably this one could be the theory of human capital development, which argues that education or training imparts in people knowledge and skills that can help increase their productivity. Now, that kind of theory, if you have that kind of theory at the back of your mind, that education and training helps to impart knowledge and skills that help to improve people's performance, then you can eventually generate this kind of conceptual framework. Okay? So that means a conceptual framework comes from theory. You don't draw it from the blue. In this table, I try to bring in some similarities and differences between what a theoretical framework is and a conceptual framework. You may be able to read it at some time on your own. But I want to say, in a theoretical framework, you present a general or broader set of ideas about what a given theory that you are using says. Okay? But you may find that you are not using all concepts or aspects of a theory. Now, when you drop those aspects of a theory that you are not interested in, I gave the example that Hasberg's two-factor theory normally gives 5 satisfiers and 5 dissatisfiers. Now, assuming you want to study factors affecting job satisfaction or academic staff, you cannot study all the 10 factors, the 5 satisfiers and the 5 dissatisfiers. You may just decide to study the dissatisfiers and have 5 objectives, 5 questions, 5 objectives, and 5 hypotheses. You leave the other 5. Now, that means in the conceptual framework you are now producing, you don't put the other elements of the theory which you are not researching on. You now leave it out. So a conceptual framework is a more specific and narrower set of concepts and their relationship which the researcher has chosen to study. In most cases, you will then discover that conceptual frameworks may be smaller than theoretical frameworks in terms of its elements, in terms of its concepts. Okay? Theoretical frameworks are based on existing theories, but conceptual frameworks are based on the variables from the theory which the researcher has chosen to study. Okay? Even in this example I've just shown here, training and development affecting performance. These are not all the elements of training. Okay, somebody can call it in-house training or no. There are different ways of classifying training. So this conceptualization does not bring all the elements of training. In other words, the conceptual framework only brings the elements of a theory which the researcher has chosen to investigate in a particular study. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to go back. I want to say theories help scholars to produce. First of all, it provides the theoretical rationale, and then it gives you that framework that can guide your study from the very beginning up to the end. Okay? But then there are other uses of theory, particularly in the quantitative research. One, okay, 2 or 3 on top of what we have been saying. A theory helps in conceptualization of the literature review, because theories, I said, they are a set of concepts and principles that explain something. So if you are studying something, like you saw in the example of the lady, even when she is reviewing literature, the theory gives her the concepts that she must review literature on. Theory actually demarcates the boundary of the research that you are supposed to do and what not to do. Okay? So it can guide you in the review of literature. Theories are helpful when considering the methodological stance. This word should be stance, not stand like that. The methodological stance for a research. Now, I want to explain this in 2 ways. Earlier, I talked of some theories which are grand, which are major. Sometimes you don't directly use them in the study, but you must have them at the back of your mind. For example, now you may know that when we discuss research paradigms, we talk normally about the positivist paradigm, the interpretivist paradigm, the pragmatist paradigm, the critical theory paradigm, and so on. Those are theories. All those are theories. Critical theory is theory. Interpretivist paradigm is actually based on mostly on the theory of social constructionism. That knowledge is constructed by social interaction and something like that. That's why qualitative researcher would wish to find out about something from the point of view of the research. Now that means when you decide to conduct a study in something using qualitative method, you have already used the theory of social constructivism in choosing the paradigm. You can imagine. When you are using positivism is a theory. It's a theory. Those who want to study gender, race, minority groups and all that, how they feel they are treated, they are already using theory of the critical theory. And they will find that that theory makes them do advocacy research, because they're anchoring their beliefs on those theories. So right from that broad level or that mega level, theory informs your paradigm, and the theory that you will select at the lower level to anchor your research will guide you on what method of study you will take. You saw in the example of the girl, she has decided to do a qualitative research of that university where she found the problem, a qualitative study, and she has gone ahead to identify the methods of data collection. She chose 4, to interview, to do a focus group discussion, to do a document analysis of the dissertation in that place for several years, and then to do journaling, taking note as she stays there of the records of things that take place. So theory is very critical in informing your methodology of the study. That means that theory helps you in developing data collection and generation of tools, because it gives you the concepts on which you should collect data. Theory helps you in providing the framework for analyzing that data. In the example I gave you, I showed you that this lady decided to use thematic analysis. But Where are our themes coming from? The themes are coming from the theories, it shows, the feminist theory, it shows. So she would like to look at the pattern of the data to see whether there is a maybe discrimination, whether there is a male dominance, because those concepts, those themes of male dominance and discrimination and all that come from the theory of feminism. So a theory gives you the frame or the framework for even analyzing your data, whether in qualitative or in quantitative research. And sometimes even in quantitative research, a theory can be developed at the end of the study. Why? Because in quantitative research, we have normally several hypotheses that we generate. Now, if you generated hypotheses, which you collect data and test year after year or time after time, the pattern that will emerge in the test of those hypotheses can even help you generate a new theory. So the point I want to say here is that it is not only in qualitative research that theory emerges as the product of the research. Even in quantitative research, theory can be at the end of the research. When you test an hypothesis several times, you will see the pattern of your results and you will definitely theorize about that something. Okay? I said from the beginning that maybe the older, the more intelligent. Now, if you collected data from America, from Europe, from different places over time, then you can theorize on the relationship between age. You can theorize on the relationship between age and intelligence, something like that. So theory is very critical in quantitative research. You should not do without theory. What about in qualitative studies? What about in qualitative studies? I want to say this, just like in quantitative studies, theories also help to give a broad explanation of the behavior and attitudes of people that we study. And in that case, sometimes the theories that we use come with complete variables, with complete constructs, with complete hypotheses, even for a qualitative research. In other words, theory can also provide a theoretical framework in a qualitative study, which guides the researcher from the beginning to the end. That illustration which I gave you was for a qualitative research, where you see the person creates the problem basing on the theory of feminism, the person gives the justification of the study basing on feminism, the person creates the purpose of the study basing on feminism, and even derive research questions, review literature, do every other thing on the basis of feminism. So in that case, there is no difference in this aspect with the use of theory between a qualitative study and a quantitative study. Not at all. Two, researchers in qualitative research are increasingly using a theoretical lens, which is making the use of theory very common in qualitative research, particularly for studying things like gender issues, things like class, things like race, things like maybe cultural discrimination. Many people who are going for those kind of studies are using a priority theories prior to going to the field. In that case, they do qualitative studies just like quantitative researchers do. Theory plays a significant role from the beginning up to the end. In qualitative studies, just like I've also mentioned in some quantitative studies, theory can be the end point of the study. A qualitative researcher can start by collecting data, maybe by interviewing some people, okay? And as the number of people he interviews increases, he begins to analyze the data and see a certain pattern emerging. And when this pattern becomes dominant and consistent, somebody can theorize that when things are like this is what happens. Okay? So in that case, theory emerges as the end product of the qualitative research process. I said this is also possible in a quantitative study. Now, it is because of this kind of argument that makes many people say, I'm doing qualitative, I don't need a theory. I'm doing qualitative. Not all qualitative studies do not need theories. That is not true. That is not true. If you use a theory in a qualitative study, it gives you a better framework on how to do the study in a more systematic manner than saying I'm doing qualitative and therefore I don't need a theory. That is not true. Lastly, some qualitative studies do not employ explicit theories. That's true, particularly if you are doing a phenomenology where you want to interview participants to understand their experience about a phenomenon. You may not need a theory. You may not need a theory. You can just do interviews and so on to learn the experience of people about something, okay? But still, even when you do not need a theory at the beginning, remember, or already by deciding that you are doing a phenomenology, you are somehow believing in social constructivism, that knowledge is a creation of people that you are studying, okay? That is a grand theory at a bigger level. But at the local level, you may not apply any direct theory. You just do the interviews and so on. But as the number of people you interview increases, there's likely going to be an emerging pattern that can help you theorize that when people probably go through this is what happens. This is how their behavior is influenced. So, colleagues, whether you're doing quantitative or qualitative studies, you need to theorize. That's what I'm trying to say. You need to theorize. It's unfortunate that I gave only one illustration, which is fitting for qualitative. But this demonstration shows you that in a quantitative research, you need to apply theory in the same way to help you look at the research problem, to help you define the purpose of your research, to help you justify the need for your study, and to help you generate questions. Okay, I told you that if you are using the Hasbach's two-factor theory, which has got 10 factors, okay, your questions will come out of those 10. What could be the effect of pay? What could be the effect of recognition on job satisfaction? What could, so that you don't get objectives and questions from the blue. It is the theory which guides you on the selection of the questions. And you can see here, in this particular case, the theory of feminism is helping the researcher in the review of literature, in the formulation of the theoretical framework, in the development of the conceptual framework, in considering the methods to use, and in the data analysis plan. All these things are anchored on the theory the researcher believes in, okay, which is very critical. In mixed method studies, which normally is a combination of the two, the use of theory is equally dominant, like in the other two types of researches. Two words which I may not have stressed at the beginning, that in quantitative studies, theories are normally used deductively from the very beginning to the end. And for the qualitative studies, most time theories are used inductively. Most people think that theory should emerge at a later stage. And that may affect even the writing of the proposals and the dissertation. You may find somebody doing a qualitative study has no mention of theory from chapter 1, no chapter 2, and so on, hoping that theory will be an end product. And yet, a qualitative researcher can also use a theory from the very beginning to the end. So, in short, for a mixed method researcher, you can use theories in a way of a combination, because there's a part of your study which is quantitative and there's a part of your study which is qualitative. And you must be careful at what stage are you mixing, okay? So you can use theories in the way a qualitative researcher uses or in the way a quantitative researcher uses, but deductively and inductively. Maybe something special I want to say is that with the mixed method or mixed method research, borrowing from quantitative and qualitative approaches, there is now a new research design emerging in the mixed method study, which some scholars call the transformational emancipatory research design. Okay, where the researcher prefers to use more critical theory, more critical theory to see a way how they can collect their data, knowing that the minorities are normally discriminated against, they are dominated, they are not privileged or something like that. So a new research design is coming in the mixed method field, which we can call transformational emancipatory research design, where somebody applies the critical theory to try and understand something, bringing in the quantitative, but also bringing in the qualitative perspective. And the qualitative perspective is majorly anchored on the critical theory. Okay? So in short, whether you are doing qualitative, mixed method, and so on, you need theory. You need theory. You need to understand theory. And remember that, as we said, theories are of different level. If you are choosing on your paradigm or your research approach, you are going to use a grand theory, like critical theory, like social constructivism, like positivism, okay? Which you need to know. You may not write it directly in your dissertation here and there, but you need to have it at the back of your mind. In summary, colleagues, I want to say that while the use of theory is very critical, there are challenges in using theory in educational research. I just have some 4 points to note here. One, that there is no such a well-established unified theory of education, which are supported by a majority of educational researchers. We do not have many theories that we can say this is an educational research. No, this is an educational theory, and it says this and that. Many of the theories we use, we end up borrowing from elsewhere. Okay, we end up borrowing from elsewhere. So that is a challenge. A challenge where some students would tell you, sir, I don't see a theory which I can use in my study. But I want to insist that there can be a theory explaining the phenomenon you're investigating in education, but the theory may be located outside the field of education. The other challenge is that many educational researchers borrow theories from elsewhere. Okay, and of course, sometimes the theories do not fit the educational context very well. That's the problem with borrowing a theory from sociology into education, from economics into education. Sometimes the theories do not fit the context of education. Three, much debate, much discussion as debate within educational research normally takes the shape of battles within and between theories. And this is a challenge because sometimes the researcher fails to choose which theory or which theoretical orientation is more appropriate for his or her study than the other. Because we are almost like in always a battle. You always know the paradigm wars. Yeah? The paradigm wars. But also there's always the theoretical wars where you may think this theory is better than that in explaining this. And sometimes it may not be true. And lastly, many educational researchers usually poorly select theories in their studies. This is one critical problem. For that matter, this creates a poor match between the theory they invoke and its relevance for their data set. I talked about this earlier. You find that you said, I'm going to use this theory and to try and explain something, but you'll find that the theory is not suitable for understanding the problem you're trying to investigate. So at the end of the day, you'll find that the theory and the data set you collect do not talk to each other, you cannot modify the theory. You cannot prove whether it is wrong or right, because the theory and the data set are way different from each other. So the choice of your theoretical framework or the choice of your theory must be well thought out. Finally, I want to say that as we have seen that there are no well-established unified theory in education, education remains a field of study with multifaceted perspective, where you can bring theories from different areas to give you your theoretical position. Okay. Last week or early this week, I saw a student from the College of Statistics in Makerere studying higher education. Studying higher education. And I'm sure I didn't attend the defense. I wanted to listen to the candidate because I wanted to see the theoretical orientation of that student studying higher education in the College of Statistics. But of course, I'm sure most likely use an economics theory to try and explain what takes place in higher education. Education is as multifaceted or as diverse in its theoretical orientation like that. Okay, that a theory can come from a different angle and can be used to explain a problem which is educational in nature. Okay, so colleagues, think about the theory you are using in your study. And as I said, I've not talked about all types of theories. You will still find in your readings different types of theories that people are talking about. Okay, like the theory which results from the research after a researcher has obtained data and seen the pattern in that data. They are called pattern theories. And so that comes as a result of the nature in which the theory is formed. Okay. So I want to wish you guys the very best in your endeavor to deal with theory. Okay. As I said earlier, scholars have noticed that people fear theories, but as at PhD, you may not run away from theory. Okay. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to me. I want to thank you for giving me this time again to talk to you. At the end, I want to ask you this, that you go back and reflect on your research paradigm. Are you doing a qualitative study? Are you doing a quantitative study? Remember, even the choice of the paradigm is theoretical by design. If you are picking the paradigm of interpretism, then you are actually believing in social constructivism. Okay? If you want to go for feminist theories and so on, you are believing in critical theory. No? So right from that time, you need to start thinking about theory. Now, what theory will you use to guide your proposed study if you are still doing your PhD at this time? What theory are you using? How suitable is the theory? You need to think about this. Will the theory speak to the data set which you will generate, most likely? Because you should know that the theory must guide you from the conceptualization of the problem, the formulation of research questions, up to the end of data collection and analysis. That theory must guide you. The business of talking about your theory shallowly at the beginning or in the literature review, and then nobody now sees what theory guided your study up to the end, should stop. Okay, should stop. You should become friendly to theory, know how a theory is used. Okay, I want you to construct a theoretical framework for your study using an appropriately selected theory. Identify the key concepts which you are studying, and also be able to construct your conceptual framework. But most importantly, know how to use a theory to guide your study from the beginning up to the end, regardless of what type of research you are doing. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to me. That brings us to the end of my presentation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Doctor, can you entertain like 2 questions?
Thank you for that wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you. Some
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Doctor. God bless you.
there could be some questions.
Yes, doctor.
I don't know what time it is, but we could listen to some
Yeah,
few questions.
doctor, the first
Yes.
one is a request. This is Godfrey.
Yes.
The first
Yes.
one is a request. From the voices
Yes.
of the majority, they
Yes.
seem to be suggesting for your kindness to
Yes.
share the slides, and perhaps even the slides, me I missed the other one for literature review. If you could share the slides, then they would help us in when we are doing our proposals.
That is very important. Thank you
Then
very
the
much.
second the question now.
I got that request.
take it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So if you registered for the seminar, the slide will be forwarded to your to you. Then you have access to this recording on the YouTube channel. So please visit our YouTube channel. IIEA. You have access to the full recording of the of this seminar. But in respect to that, you'll be sent the slide. Did you get that?
Yes, because why I'm saying so, like my experience today, I registered, but I never got a feedback for access. I've actually used my lecture platform to access the ID and the password.
Oh, no problem. So just visit the YouTube channel. You'll be able to access the full seminar. Then would you get a copy of the slides? Thank you very much. Because of time, we might not be able to take a lot of questions. So let's just see the first 2 people that would indicate the question. They have questions. So please, if you have questions, you can use your electronic hand, or so I know you have a question you want to ask physically.
Yes.
Or you can just send the question to me as a chat, and then we'll answer the question afterwards. So please, I will just take 2 or 3. So the first set of people to indicate will just be the ones to take. Sorry, it's because of time constraints.
Godfrey is asking.
Yes, please.
Doctor, the first question is, I would like you to comment about the confusion of using 2 theories. And the second question is how to conceptualize. Is the conceptual framework a customizing of the understanding of the study, or strictly it has to come from the theory? Thank you.
Thank you, Godfrey. First, when do we probably use more than a theory? It depends on the issues that we are investigating. For instance, someone studying organizational factors and their influence on, for instance, job productivity may find that the organizational factors he or she is looking at are governed or explained by different concepts. For example, the concept of culture. Culture is an organizational factor. But you may find that you have culture, you have which other factor is there? You may have technology. Technology is an organizational factor. And you have culture, technology, maybe another factor. Just by picking to study culture and technology, you will definitely notice that the theory that may guide your question on what to study on organizational culture may be quite different from the theory you will use for asking question to investigate technology. You see? So in that case, you are studying organizational factors that affect work performance. But because you are looking at organizational factors and the factors are diverse, you may find that a different theory is the one you are using to question how culture affects, and a different theory is the one you are using to question how technology affects. So in that case, you end up with 2 or even more theories. So it is possible. to study using different theories. And the conceptual framework, as I said, emanate from the concepts and the relationship which the theory has provided for you that you want to study. Now, in that case, the conceptual framework is narrower than the theoretical framework because the concepts that you want to study are few. I gave you the example of the Hasbach's two-factor, which has 10 factors, but you are only studying 3. A student may just want to study 3. How does pay affect? How does organizational policy affect? So out of the 10 factors, you are only studying 3. So that means your conceptual framework will only have 3 factors. But the conceptual framework will define for us the concepts that you are studying and the possible hypotheses that you have developed among them. So Godfrey, that is what it is.
Thank you, Doctor.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Please check your conceptual framework and make sure that it covers the things that you are studying, the concepts that you are studying. The conceptual framework is a scheme of concepts that you are studying and the possible relationship you are hypothesizing exists among them. You can describe it in words or you can put it into a model, a diagram, a graph, a figure to show what you want to study. Madam Moderator, maybe we can just have one more. I see the time is going to midnight.
Can you hear me?
Yes, but faint a bit.
Okay, so I'm saying let's take one more.
Yes, one more.
So let me check the chat if we have anyone that asks a question on the chat. So probably we'll just go with that.
Yes.
I'm trying to scroll through to see. Okay, there is one here. What is the appropriate way to state in the research work on quality research I think this should be theoretical framework or theoretical background from Ayodele. Ayodele, just let's go with that. I can't pronounce the next.
Okay, I may not have understood the question very well, but I want to just say what I've given is a generic approach to how to utilize a theory in whatever circumstance that you are, whether it is a policy research, whether it is a human resource management research or leadership research. I just gave a generic approach to how to look at the theory and use it. So at some point, we can continue sharing, ladies and gentlemen. We can continue sharing. Moderator?
Yes, sir.
I want to thank you. I want to thank you again and thank all the participants. The turn-up was so beautiful. I love it. I love it. And I want to really appreciate the International Association for Innovations in Education Assessment for creating for us this platform and always allowing us to continue learning, even in a very difficult circumstance generally. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I want to wish everybody the best God can give you.
You too. God bless you, Prof.
Thank you very much, sir, for your willingness and your time. We appreciate you always.
God bless you too, Prof.
Just before we bring this to a wrap,
God bless you too.
Just before we bring this to a wrap, please very quickly, we want to have a short information from the president of the association. Just exercise a little more patience while he gives us a few information. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Your Excellency.
Good evening, sir.
It's very wonderful. We have been having a wonderful session for the past 3 weeks now. First of all, I want to appreciate my dear friend and brother from Ghana, Dr. David Une.
Thank you.
He has really sacrificed to help us, especially our postgraduate students. And I believe that many people have benefited from this series of study.
Thank you so much, Prof.
I want to talk about our forthcoming annual conference. We just have 57 days more to go. I want to talk about what is it all about. By the grace of God, this year will be the 4th edition of the International Annual Conference of IIA. What are the things we are to expect? We know that since last year, we've been having a global pandemic, and that is COVID-19. But thank God we have given ourselves to prayer that we are not going to lose anyone. No member of IIA will be lost. And we thank God, God has been keeping us, and He will continue to keep us. Now, but we want to look during this conference, as we have the theme, assessment in the new normal times. This period that we are now is referred to as new normal times. What are the things that we want to discuss during the annual conference? First, we want to look at assessment that is characterized by digital culture. We want to look at assessment for creativity, critical thinking, and innovation. We want to look at assessment methods in the arts, assessment methods in the humanities, assessment methods in the sciences, assessment methods in the social sciences. We want to look at how we can avoid pass or fail dichotomy in assessment. You know, emphasis has been much on performance, student achievement in school. And you see that this is not helping any country. Everybody has something to offer. There is nobody that God has not given one skill or the other. So if we de-emphasize, how can we de-emphasize pass or failure dichotomy that is in existence in our assessment? All the teacher want to find out from the students the area he has ability and how we can encourage that student to do well in order to profit humanity. So during the conference, we'll be talking about that. That is avoiding pass or fail dichotomy in assessment. Then we'll look at COVID-19 challenges and assessment. We want to look at entrepreneurship and assessment. Then we want to go from e-learning. You know, we have been talking about e-learning for some time now. I want to move from e-learning to e-assessment. This paper, pencil test we have been doing. How can we move from that to e-assessment? Then we want to move from traditional classroom to e-teaching. You see that we thank God our attendance is increasing as we are having this bi-weekly webinar. But many of our colleagues are not yet keen to it. Some of them feel that what are they going to learn? Some of them are complaining about data. Some of them think that it is too late to learn. So, but you see, during the conference, we emphasize how we can move from traditional classroom to e-teaching. And also, we'll be looking at ICT and humanity. Then we are going to look at inclusiveness in educational assessment. And we're going to talk about machine learning, robotics, and artificial intelligence, a panacea for unemployment debacle. We also want to look at psychometrics in assessment. We want to look at using assessment to promote learning and any other area of research. So you see, by the grace of God, our conference this year will be very much loaded, and we need to actually make a lot of preparation. From our end here, we are preparing, and I believe that from your end, you need to start preparing. Apart from all these subtopics we have mentioned, your own part may be you may take any of these sub-team and write a paper on it or do research on it, and you'll be given the privilege to come and share with us during the conference. We are waiting for you to still send your abstract, even though it's already late, as you can see from the flyer being displayed, but you are still receiving abstract. at least for the next 2-3 weeks, we'll still be receiving, or 1 month, we'll still be receiving abstract. So do well to send in your abstract so that you can participate in the workshop, I mean in the conference. Usually, our conference, since we started, we always have 3 phases. The first phase is the area of academics, where you have all these presentations. When people present their paper, it will be criticized, positive criticism. And the essence of doing that is to make the work better. This work is not just to present in the conference, but that it will even help the posterity, those who are not able to attend the conference. After we have criticized the paper, if we will now send the corrected copy to the association, and the association will send it for peer review. Paper that go through the peer review are usually published in the Journal of Innovations in Educational Assessment, which is the journal of the association IAIE. So if you can attend the conference, you'll be sure that by the grace of God, you also have papers that will come out in our journal in the following year. That of the annual conference, which I'm going to enjoy. This one is very conference. We're looking at what training and assessment. The second workshop we talk about big data and artificial intelligence application in education. And the third workshop we'll be talking on enhancing educational assessment through data science. And lastly, the fourth workshop will be addressing modern software for educational research. So you see that the workshop too will be well loaded. I want you to share this flyer and encourage people all over the globe to actually attend this conference. For everybody to be able to participate in this conference, we are just charging a minimum amount just to be able to cover certain things. We are going to spend money. We are going to spend money on data and some other logistics. So when you look at the conference fee is so minimal, any student can afford, and those who are working can afford. So the emphasis of the association actually is not on money, but we have to keep the association going. But we want to encourage everybody to be a member. So the head of our ICT will be talking to you on how can you register for the conference shortly when I drop before I allow him to talk. I want us to know that we are going to have a keynote speaker, and I want to announce to us tonight that our keynote speaker has been chosen even before he started handling our webinar. A person of Dr. David One, he will be the keynote speaker during the conference. Can we give him a round of applause? He has, even before giving up keynote speaker, he actually helped the association. Can I hear you? Let's clap for him. Thank you very much. Yes. Now, the next person I want to introduce is also here with us tonight. Is a woman that in Nigeria is a reputable chief executive of one of our examination board, National Business and Technical Examination Board. I sincerely and humbly, and it's a pleasure that she's going to be our lead paper presenter. I want to announce to the whole world that she's my teacher, and I have deep respect for her. And she's going to be our lead paper presenter is Professor Ifeoma Isugu Abani. She was in this seminar tonight. I don't know whether she's still with us. Out of her busy schedule, I spoke to her that she just had to come and listen to a partner that will be the keynote speaker, and I saw her name on the platform. So if she's there or she's not there, can we also clap for her too? Professor Ifeoma, can we give her a round of applause? Thank you very, very much. Now, how do we register for the conference? I want to appreciate our technical group or the association. They have made the registration so simple. Sometimes we used to have problems with the bank when we send money to the application. They have designed simple things you can do. Even with the convenience in your house, you can register for this conference, and your money will hit the bank account of the association. I will allow our man to talk to us about that. Many of us have been benefiting from the association, and you are just coming in and going out. But I want to encourage you should be a full member of the association. I want to encourage you to register because you have many things you are going to enjoy. From next year, there will be certain things that members will enjoy that those members will not enjoy. So for you to have full complement of the association, I want to encourage you that you should register immediately. You'll see in our website, which we are going to launch very soon. By this month end, you are going to tell you the day we are going to launch the website. So I want you to make sure that you register as a member before that time. Our technical crew will also tell you how can you be a member, how can you financially register for the as a member of the association. Over to you, our dear ICT head, Mr. Faith. Over to you.
Good evening here from Nigeria, and it's a pleasure having everyone on board this evening. So just a quick one to show us how we can register for this conference. Kindly visit as you can see, it's been displayed on your screen. www.iaiea.org. I believe everyone can see what is being displayed on the screen. So once you get to this website, this is what you will see. There are a lot of applications that have been done and other than your invitation for this year's conference. But for your registration, you go under programs, and then you select conference. And there we have the conference page, and we have the countdown to the conference. And sorry about that. The date is 15th to 19th of November, and the theme is assessment in the new normal. So just scroll down a little. You could submit abstracts directly from here. And these are important dates you also need to take note of. And then right there, we have get started. So you click on that, and it's going to take you to the registration page. Now, once you get to the registration page, all you have to do is to supply your details. And then supply every detail as necessary, your country. I'm from Nigeria, so I'm going to select Nigeria. Kindly supply every detail that is required. And then how will you like to attend the conference? Sorry, can you see my screen? Oh, I have a drop down here. It seems it's not coming up. But once you get to this place, there are two options you would see on your screen. That is the physical and the virtual. So assuming I want to attend virtually, I'll select virtual, as you can see on your screen there, and then you click proceed to payment. So as you can see, I can proceed to payment because I've not filled in all the necessary details. So you need to fill in all details. then your institution name, assuming you're from University of Abuja. This is just a test data. It's not a selection of anything true.
No, that's what
Proceed to payment. So from here,
because
it's going to please proceed to make payment. And kindly note that it's payment that validates your registration. So if you register and you don't pay, that does not validate your registration. So the page is still loading. So here we have, so just select if it's virtual. And then from here, you provide every necessary details once again. And then you pay. So from here, it's going to take you to the payment page, and this is where you'll be required to input your card number and then every other detail. And you can make payments from anywhere. You can make payments from Ghana. You can make payments from Uganda. Distance is not a barrier. So thank you very much. So this is just the process of how you can make payments. Thank you very much.
Very easy to follow through. So just go on the website and do a proper, a thorough Okay, sorry about that. So just visit the website and you'll be able to walk through it. It's very easy to go through. With this, I want to say thank you very much once again to Dr. One. You see, I didn't exaggerate my introduction of him earlier. It was really very thorough and it was painstakingly thoughtful of him to teach us the way he did. Thank you very much, Dr. One, once again. And
thank you so much.
Yes,
thank you so much. I'm humbled.
So to everyone that participated, we are so grateful you joined tonight. I will be expecting you until next time. My name is Peace Ario. Have a wonderful week ahead.
Same to you. Same to you. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, and good night to all.
Thank you, Doctor.
Very much. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank
Same.
you and good night.
Thank you.
Please tell Doctor we are very grateful for the presentation today.
Thank you so much. Blessed night.
Thank you, Doctor, for that presentation. That was fantastic.